Welcome back, blood fans, to another spine-tingling season of Rain of Blood. This is season 4, and we're diving even deeper into the captivating world of sharps and needles, where every prick can spark joy, and every heartbeat resonates with electrifying thrill of connection. I am one of your hosts, Miss Kitten, and this is your sharp conversation platform that celebrates the exquisite beauty of blood play, both its artistry and in its intimate nuances. As we gear up for our next big event or deal, get ready to immerse yourselves in stories that will ignite your passions and challenge your boundaries like never before. From the empowering narratives of those who boldly embrace their desires to the intricate exploration of trust and safety in the realm of kink, we'll delve into it all. But be warned, the season is dedicated to those who dare to explore. So consider this your content warning for discussions that will touch on blood, sharp objects, and emotional landscapes they traverse. So whether you're tuning in from the comfort of your own home or while embarking on a midnight adventure, grab your headphones and prepare to embrace the exhilarating. It's time to immerse ourselves in the rich narratives that weave together the fabric of our vibrant, bloody community. Hey, amazing humans! It's so good to be back with you for season 4 and we're preparing for Ordeal. We are so excited. So many exciting presenters and exciting classes coming. We hope you got your tickets and we hope that you're as excited as we are. I have a really exciting presenter for you coming to speak to us about something else sharp, not needles today. I have Phèdre from San Francisco. Welcome, beautiful human, and it's good to have you in my dungeon virtually.
Oh, hello. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, I'm so excited. I'm so excited because this human's profile on FetLife is just a smorgasbord of incredible photography and art. And it's just, as a creator, it's really exciting to see other people creating. So before I get into anything else, you've got to tell me a little bit about that because your art has quite an effect, and it leaves a beautiful feeling afterwards. And I mean, I think I saw your profile about 4 weeks or 3 weeks ago, and I'm still smiling. So
Oh,
definitely, yeah. So do you want to tell me a little bit about that? Because there's definitely a love for what you're doing there.
absolutely. So, first of all, your words are so, so sweet. Art and artistry have been a vital part of my life for pretty much as long as I've been alive. And so, for the things I put out there to affect other people and make them smile, that's like pretty much the biggest compliment I can get. Um, so, alongside, just really enjoying showing off my kink and my inner world, I've been a photographer both personally and professionally as a side gig for many, many years. Um, and I not only love doing self-portraiture, but I also do a lot of boudoir work and portrait work and sometimes fetish work.
I love that. And your photos have such depth and they really spoke to me. So please don't stop what you're doing. And I love the way your work connects and your life is connecting with your vanilla and your kink crossing over with the photography. I think that's important to keep the passion going throughout. Um, so how did you find kink? What was your journey like from the normal muggle world into this really crazy world of BDSM? How did that start for you?
Well, like many other people, I had the inklings in me since I started existing on this planet. And so, after significant research in my teenage years, the second I turned 18, I immediately wanted to join the community. And at the time, I was enrolled in Stanford University, and they had a brand new official BDSM club called Cardinal Kink. And this was the coolest and most intimidating thing I'd ever seen in my life because it was real people at my university doing kink education, community, and they were all so self-assured and beautiful, and I wanted to be one of them. And so I dove in headfirst, got really, really involved, and then in my sophomore year, I wound up becoming the president of the organization. And from there, I was coordinating local presenters and teachers in the community to come give workshops at the university. But one thing that was so valuable to me my freshman year before I was in leadership was that the leadership at the time was so good at teaching basic 101 BDSM safety and language. And so the first time I ever went to a dungeon, we all rolled up together in a carpool, and I felt so safe because I was with my fellow classmates, and they had prepared me, and I knew they would look out for me. And I feel insanely lucky to have had that experience.
Oh, that's amazing. That is a really cool, because that first time in the dungeon can be completely overwhelming. So it's always nice to go with a group of friends. Do you still get to play with a couple of these people or hang out with them or have contact with them?
One of them is one of the best friends I'll ever have in my life. She currently lives in another state, but we talk all the time and we visit each other.
Oh, that's so cool. That is really cool. I think you connect and kink on a different level. And that intimacy is something that's truly special. Some of my best friendships in life are people who I stab on a regular basis. It's lovely.
I love that. Yeah,
So
there's
you,
something really. Go on,
sorry.
sorry.
No, no, no. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt
Oh
you.
no, I was gonna agree with you that there is something really special about having a friend that you can like casually rope lab with or do other play with or even just talk about kink because it's such a deep part of one's identity. And to be able to connect with people on something that is so important to your soul and your heart and that's also so taboo in modern society, it's a really special way to connect with other people.
Oh, I love that. Um, so we're talking about sharps, and I know that you don't like needles. So tell me a little bit about sharps that you do like and
Absolutely.
how that came to be, and your
Yeah.
first experience with them.
So I love scalpels. I love the look of cuts. I love the blood. I love the intimacy. I love the feeling. Um, and my first introduction to sharps was that all of my friends were doing needles, and it became a running joke with the sadists I would hang out with that they would show me pictures of all these needle scenes and I would like flinch away like, oh, I can't do it, I can't do it, because I have had a phobia of needles since I was a little kid that I'm working on. One day I will do a needle scene and it will be a big deal, but the scalpels were always exciting to me. And so there was this guy that I was dating near the tail end of college, and he had a lot of experience with doing stick and poke tattoos on himself, and he was an artist, and he had a really like measured, careful hand and a very careful eye. And I trusted this man with my life. And neither of us had ever done scalpels. And so we did something that could have been really stupid, which is that we decided to both do our first ever scalpel scene together. And it wound up being beautiful because he was really careful. We did as much research as we could ahead of time about risks, about mitigation. Um, he did like a feather light touch to make sure that he only cut as deep as he had to get a little trail of blood. And then that started off immediately a passion and something I found myself craving all of the time.
Absolutely love that. It's so beautiful to watch you talk about it and how happy it makes you. I had a very interesting year because last year I took a class called Dark Dentistry. And I have had such a phobia with the dentist up until the ripe old age of like 45 that they literally send me a script for an anti-anxiety pill so that I can take it before I get there. They're that kind. I think they're trying to protect themselves from me. They have got that clever in how they handle me as a patient. And after this dentistry class, I was fine. And it was just about changing my observation of how I saw the action and the intent behind the action. So, and it literally had like a life changing, the poor person who taught this literally had a life changing effect on me because I can now almost sit and have a conversation with my dentist. I think this freaks him out more than how I was before. And I'm okay with what's going on in my mouth, and I'm desperate to play with what's going on in other people's mouths because of the
I
class.
love that.
So,
Yeah,
but just sorry, please go.
oh no, I was gonna say I agree with you that pretty much anything can be reframed, and that is, I mean, one of the most powerful things about BDSM that survivors of sexual assault might be drawn to CNC play to reclaim that trauma in a different container and recontextualize it, or even with something like cutting. I could absolutely imagine someone who has a past doing it with the intent to punish themselves might end up wanting to reclaim that activity as something that is empowering and an act of self-love and self-care. And it totally depends on whether an individual feels that that would be empowering and whether they feel ready to engage in that reframing, and also whether the people they'd be doing it with are giving them that safe container and that care.
I love that you speak about that safe container, and I think that self-container, like they ask you what you need to know when you come into kink, and what's advice for people when they start out, and it's creating that container for me was the start of my real kink journey, because it was creating my own space where I was the center of the space and I was taking care of that space, and that was looked after. And that was hugely empowering for me. And BDSM has given me lots of life skills, a lot more than school did. But you're teaching this class on scalpels on bottoming for scalpels, which I love the take on, because I don't think enough is spoken about from a bottoms perspective. And the subject is just fascinating, because it's, even with all my knowledge of cutting and all my experience in the blood community, it's still something that makes me a little bit nervous and a little bit fearful, and sends tingles down my spine. So tell me a little bit about how the class came to be, and what the class is about.
Absolutely. So first of all, I think that having a healthy fear of a highly risky activity is a really, really good and healthy response. Because the stuff that we do is very risky and can result in permanent damage to the body and even to the psyche, and it's good to take it really seriously and to have a little bit of healthy skepticism about whether you want to do it. Which isn't to say I'm trying to gatekeep anybody. But yeah, so as a bottom in pretty much every kink activity I do, I try to be as risk aware as possible for my own safety, because tops are people and people are inherently fallible, and people are also not gods, and you can't always trust another individual to look out for you the way that you're going to look out for yourself in terms of your own risk assessment, in terms of how you're feeling in your body, in terms of um, the dangers as well as the joys that you may be taking on. And so whenever I enter any kind of negotiation, particularly as a bottom, I want to know as much as the top from my own perspective of what I'm signing up to do, what the details of the thing I'm signing up to do are going to be, and to make sure that we're on the same page in terms of how we're going to do it, so that we're on the same page of risk mitigation. And so this class was very much born out of so I've been doing scalpel play as a bottom for many, many years, and for the most part, it's gone really, really well, except for one time when it didn't go well. And as I reflected on the one time that it didn't go well, I realized that there were some pieces of knowledge that I wish that I had had ahead of time in order to maybe negotiate that scene a little bit more thoroughly, to mitigate that risk. And so, in order to basically encourage agency, and as you said, that container of taking care of yourself within edgy kink that people may be passionate about doing, I want bottoms to feel just as empowered as tops about understanding safety, and being able to have language and tools to talk about that, to have agency over their own experiences.
Absolutely love that. I work very hard to promote personal responsibility in kink. I think that we all have a responsibility to show up ethically, and ethically might mean different things, so we need to align on that before we play together. But yeah, it's interesting. The kink that taught me that the entire room had to have personal responsibility was fire. It is the one kink that is truly poly. It is the one kink that is truly dangerous, and you are never in control.
No, the fire is in control.
You are never in control. And if the entire room is not taking personal responsibility for themselves, shit goes sideways super fast. It aligns so much for me. It aligned communication, just how we communicate, like as a group in the dungeon like this. We have a really cool kink family. So generally it's like a whole bunch of raccoons playing drums in the kitchen, like that.
Good, I love
Yeah.
that.
So yeah, so like, but fire taught us to align communication so that when somebody said something in a certain way, the entire room knew how to act, how to take action. So it was just so interesting how much it stepped up our game. And it was interesting for me as a bottom. I am loud, I am outspoken, in my I'm pretty much like in my own society, it's very male dominated. Uh, so I'm not always a favorite in spaces because I really believe that women have a voice. So and here there is this horrible thing about you can't top from the bottom. So for a lot of years in my kink, like I wouldn't play with certain players, or I would be very careful about how I played with certain players, because I didn't want to be in a situation publicly where I had to say something as a bottom. I was too scared to use my voice. And as I got older, I just realized that if they didn't want to listen to me, well, it wasn't going to work. And I used my voice. And I ended up with great players. And I thought I used my voice well until I got to fire. And then I realized that the difference between me sucking it up for one more fire spank and me having a 3rd-degree burn was 2 seconds. And I needed to be giving my top the information I had as a bottom as quickly as I could, because they didn't have that information. And that was my
Exactly.
personal
Yes.
responsibility. And it was eye-opening for me because it wasn't something like normal impact where I can take 2 more with a cane, just do it, it's fine. It was something that was, you cannot, and you have to make a choice, and you fucking have to use your voice. And in that moment, realizing how hard it was for me as a pretty independent, well outspoken person, how hard it must be for other people in that situation to find a voice and to be able to activate it. Yeah. Sorry, I just really went off
No,
this
that's a great
tangent.
story.
I'm
No, it's
so
so
sorry.
relevant. A question that I actually now have for you is, in that moment when you knew that if you went further that you would get a bad burn, how were you able to know what that sensation felt like, the good versus the bad, so that you could make that judgment that this pain was going to result in something beyond what you'd signed up for?
I think, to be honest, in the beginning, I think there was a little bit of panic in it, which I probably never felt before in a kink situation, where I could feel my body starting to go into its emergency response, and I was just like, okay, enough, it's enough. But also, I think maybe there's also an element in that experience that I didn't know how far I could push the burn. So when it felt enough, I didn't want to go any further. I didn't have any trust in the fire, I think. So there was that as well. But we did manage, the first couple of times I did manage to burn myself. I also believe that in kink that if you're going to do something, you have to be able to do it to yourself before you can do it to other people. I know that that's not everybody's philosophy, but it works for me. So I believe that you should have have the skill, in principle, that you should be understand what it feels like. And the first couple of times I played with fire, I burned myself a couple of times. In the first like 4 minutes, I had no hair on my arms. So the reality is, if I'm doing that, I'm super careful. My risk management's super good. That human element you spoke about earlier, yeah, there is a global shortage of staff. Staff are currently not available. There are only humans available, and you have to know that at some point it's going to go wrong.
Right, which is why the collaboration is so important. Like that moment that you just said in your story, where you had information about your body and how your body was feeling that your top would have had no idea about. Of course, you had to speak up because otherwise the scene could have been traumatic for both of you.
It was remarkable how weary I was about speaking up. I spoke up, but it was something that was very, like, a little internal thing that went, why are you so scared to do this? We don't play with any dynamics. It's literally for science, like a whole bunch of raccoons with no law degrees, all smashing in the kitchen, just trying to make new things happen. So, there's no, and even in that, I didn't want to be considered not able to do the thing or less than. It's so interesting because, I mean, yeah, my masochist journey's been expansive. It's not something I've got to prove to anybody. It's just interesting how my head read it. And I sort of thought in that situation, like if I feel like that, I'm a confident bottom and I'm a relatively confident top. How does a bottom who's not confident feel? So I think classes like yours are super important because we've got to, this is our fantasy and we've got to make it work for us.
Absolutely. And I really appreciate your support because I completely agree that not only is it already difficult to speak up for ourselves in general, but in kink particular, and especially among masochists, there is this culture of, well, if I can't take it, I'm not good enough, or, well, if I speak up, I'm disrespecting my top. And unless you have like a very, very negotiated dynamic with someone where you can't say no to them and where you have fully given up your rights to communication, which is certainly a type of dynamic that people might engage in, otherwise, I think those thought patterns are really damaging and very important to get over, especially with riskier stuff. Like, there's a big difference between doing a spanking scene where you take a little more than you want to, and then maybe you have some bruises for a couple weeks, versus a fire scene or a needle scene or a scalpel scene where you don't speak up when you feel like something is not quite right. And then suddenly maybe you're left with a horrible burn or a scar on your body for a lot longer than you wanted.
But I will say the one thing I have now learned from that scene is I will speak up in all my scenes. And
Good. Yes.
I won't take something that I don't want. And you know, even if there's a slight, I'm not 100% behind it. I have to be 100% behind it. And it was quite an eye-opening moment for me. Um, and I think we do it a lot as masochists because we don't ever want to fail.
Exactly.
uh,
Right.
you know, I can handle anything except failure. That would be that would be the worst possible outcome. Um, and I think there was a lot of soul searching in my own life after that, and I'm definitely probably even worse as a bottom now. But it's great, and I think everybody should be encouraged. We have a horrible thing here. When I came into the community, it was like, you know, bottoms cannot top from the bottom. And it was a hard you know, as a switch, you were never sure if you were topping or if you were just telling them that you don't like this shit and they needed to change it up. And it takes a while to find what your boundaries really are. And my only advice, therefore, especially with edgeplay, is just go slowly. It doesn't need to be the Olympics.
Exactly. And that topping from the bottom is sometimes what they call healthy communication.
Yeah,
And
that.
yeah.
Yeah. It's what
And
normal
but
people
yeah.
call healthy communication. And we love it.
And
And you know the
what
other
if winning is just mutual pleasure and both people feeling great about the scene afterwards? What if winning doesn't mean that you take the heaviest thing or have the craziest marks?
love that. I absolutely love that. I've really enjoyed chatting to you. I'm so excited. You are an incredible upcoming artist. It's beautiful to see your work. I can't wait to have you on our platform.
Thank
And
you. I'm
thank
so
you for your
excited.
time. Thank you for chatting to me tonight.
Thank you. Have an awesome night. It was so good to talk to you.
And to all my listeners, if you haven't got your Rain of Blood tickets, I don't know what you're doing with your lives. If you need a scholarship, please reach out to us. We are happy to assist. Education should be for everyone. Please keep your messages coming in. Thank you for all the amazing photographs. We are loving the stencil competition. They're going to have a hard time choosing that one. I'm glad it's not me. And from my dungeon in a really sunny, still summer South Africa, lots of love and kitten kisses.